Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
I have some stories for you guys, and for some reason every time I try to make this video it either keeps glitching or the app just closes out on me entirely, so I'm going to try to make this video through this time. All of these stories take place in Colorado, at our childhood home, and it was built, I believe, in 1973. My family moved in 1996, just a couple months after I was born. It was my parents, my older sister, and I. And then after that, my parents had 3 more girls, so there was 5 of us daughters, and then my parents. And I never really experienced anything up until I was around 11 years old, which brings me to my very first encounter with anything paranormal. It happened one day. It was in the middle of the day. I was walking to my room. We had family over that day, and they were downstairs, but I was up on the top level. And on the top level, once you hit the landing, you can take a left, which takes you to my parents' room and bathroom, or you can take a right, which takes you down a long hallway, and there are 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. So there's 2 bedrooms across from each other, a bathroom, and then 2 more bedrooms across from each other at the very end. My bedroom was at the very end of the hallway to the left. So I was walking to my room, and I remember turning to the left and looking directly in my room where I see my bed, which is pushed up against the wall underneath the window. As I look in, I see a little girl standing by my bed. She had long, dark, straight hair, and she had like a white dress or a nightgown kind of looking outfit on. The first thing that came to my head was my sister, because she was a little bit younger than me, and this girl that was standing by my bed looked to be around her age, except the only major difference was, 1, her outfit, but 2, my sister didn't have dark hair. She had really, really light brown, almost blonde hair. But the only logical explanation in my head was that was my sister. So I called out my sister's name. I was frozen in the doorway, but I called out her name, and this little girl looks from my bed up back at me in the doorway, and we make eye contact, and we're just there staring at each other for a few seconds, and then she looks back down and she walks backwards into my closet. So for some reason I thought, okay, let me walk into my room, and I go over to the closet, which is shut, both the doors are closed, and I'm just staring, I guess to see if there was someone there, or I don't know. And then it dawned on me, like, why the hell am I standing here? Let me book it out of my room. So I ran downstairs, got my grandma, and I told her about it. She came upstairs and looked in the closet, and there was nothing there. Around this time, we also got a brand new puppy, and she was like 8 weeks old. So I woke up super early one morning. It was still dark outside. I went downstairs to the main level of the house, grabbed her out of her crate, and took her to the backyard. It was a few steps down from the door, so I stood kind of in the doorway and went to set her down. And as I did that, I looked down to put her on the ground and looked up. When I looked up, I saw the same little girl, long dark hair, dark eyes, very pale skin, just emotionless, like no emotions on her face at all. And standing next to her this time, on both sides, standing behind her, are 2 men, and they both have their hands on her shoulders. And all 3 of them are just there staring at me. And the men looked kind of stern, but I just kind of froze, looked back down, and when I looked up, they were gone. I have some other experiences that I went through while I lived at that house, but I'm going to keep that for another video, because honestly, sharing it makes me feel like a crazy person. So maybe in another video, but not this one. And then my youngest sister, she is the sweetest thing ever. When she was little, we would always ask her for favors. We would ask her to go down all the way into the basement to our big pantry room to bring us snacks and stuff like that. And she would always do it. But one day we were asking her to go do us a favor and get us snacks, and she said no, she wouldn't go. She wanted someone to go with her. Well, she ended up opening up to us and telling us why after a few tries of asking her to go down there alone, because it defeated the purpose if we had to go with her. She ended up telling us, and it sounds kind of funny, but she was so young and it just really scared her. But explaining it sounds kind of silly, but it was really scary. So she said that she had gone down to the basement one day, and she said that there were a bunch of people down there, and the way that she described them, they sounded like they were from a long time ago, the way that they were dressed and the way that they were, like the way that they looked. So she said when she hit the bottom of the basement, she saw all these people, and they were like dancing, but they were dressed like in old outfits. And when she hit the bottom of the floor, they all stopped what they were doing and just turned and looked at her. And she said as she walked by, they all just stared at her as she walked on. So that kind of explains why she didn't want to go down there anymore. And she really wouldn't. She was so scared. Another time when she was really little, around 3 or 4, she was in her room. She was supposed to be sleeping. And I just keep hearing her laughing. I'm like, what is she laughing at? I walk out of my room. We're all supposed to be asleep. I see my older sister, whose room was across from hers, and we meet up and we're like, what are you laughing at? She will not stop laughing. And she points to the corner and she says, that man, the man, he's funny. My sister and I look at each other and we're like, oh, hell no. So we tell her, go to sleep. And we go back to our rooms. And it was just so creepy hearing her talk about a man that we could not even see. So now moving on to my older sister, she had some experiences of seeing this little girl. There was a time where she woke up when she was sleeping in the family room, which was, if you go to the main level, if you go down the stairs, there's like a half basement where it's like above ground, but also halfway below ground. And then if you go down another flight of stairs, you're in the actual basement. Well, she was in like the half basement on the couch, and she woke up in the middle of the night and happened to look over to the staircase that went upstairs, and over the railing, she saw the same little girl that I saw, just leaning over with her long dark hair and white dress, just staring at her while my sister was sleeping. She ended up rolling over and falling back asleep. Another experience that my older sister had was one night she was sleeping in her room, and she had one wall with a window on it and another wall with the door, and also she had some decorations, including some wooden letters that spelled out her name. And during the night that she was sleeping, she woke up because she heard a bunch of noise, just noise, and I think she was too scared to check it out. So the next morning when she woke up, she realized that the desk under the window, which had a bunch of papers and stuff on it, everything was off the desk and it flew all over the room. The wooden letters that were on the opposite wall flew across the room and were on the floor, and her window wasn't open, but even if it was, I don't know how those blocks would have flown towards the window. But everything was just a mess when she woke up that morning. Moving on to my sister, right after me, there was an experience that she encountered because at this time, all of us girls were so scared to be in the house. We could just feel it every time. It just felt like something was watching you. And so whenever we'd go to the bathroom, we would ask one of us girls to go with us. Like, we would ask the other one to go with us to wait outside the door because we were too scared. I was even too scared to look in the mirror, like showers. It just freaked me out. But one day I was in the shower and I asked my sister to stand outside the door for me. I was shampooing my hair and I just hear screaming and banging on the door. So I jump out of the shower, I grab a towel, put it on, I open the door, and I'm like, what's wrong? She's damn near in tears. And she tells me that as she was sitting in the hallway, she looked down and saw a woman with long dark hair with an angry, like, stern look on her face, just floating down the hallway, just all the way from my parents' room. And so she got up and started banging on the door and, like, looked into the door. And once I opened the door and we looked, there was nothing there. So after all these experiences, we were sharing them amongst each other. We didn't really tell my parents, but after a while, enough became enough, and my dad was at work. It was in the evening, and my mom picked up my sister from one of her volleyball practices, and we were in the van, in our minivan, and we just told my mom everything. We told her all of our experiences, and my mom was really freaked out. I don't think she wanted to believe it. So we end up getting home, and our garage goes downwards because it goes towards, like, the half basement. So it goes down, and then you hit the garage, and we start pulling in. Again, my dad's at work, no one is home, the rest of us are in the car, and at that time the door that goes into the house was missing a doorknob, so it's just a hole in the door. We start pulling in, my mom puts the van in park, and we start getting out. We see the light turn on through that little hole. My mom puts the van into reverse and starts backing out. So the ones of us who are getting out of the car have to jump back in, shut the door. And of course, my mom is, like, freaking out. She's basically saying, it's your fault. You girls are inviting these things into our house, as if we weren't terrified enough. But she was just so freaked out that she actually saw something as soon as we told her everything we had been experiencing. Years ago, my dad was in the attic. He had been in the attic many times, but this one time he was in the attic and he was trying to fix something, I think, but he noticed something in the corner of the attic. He went to go and pick it up. Tell me why he found, like, a little doll, bear-looking thing with its head cut off, and it was basically a voodoo doll. It was just in our attic this whole time and we had no idea. Also, another thing to mention is when my parents moved in, there were some rooms in the house that were just painted completely black. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I think it might have been something with the previous owners, but that house, still to this day, I have nightmares about being trapped in that house. And if you want to hear more stories, let me know. But for now, that's all I will share.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, guys, so I want to start off by saying that I will probably do a series because I have so many stories. I can tell you that I have ghost paranormal activity since I was little, and I've stayed quiet because people will probably not believe me, but a lot of my friends, close friends, and family do know because I have shared with them and I have shown them proof because I've caught things in video finally. And I can say that this story that I will share with you in 2020, I do have proof and I will show a video of it because it will take you guys in for a ride of my crazy journey where it literally brought me to tears and I just didn't know what to do. Um, but this started in 2020. I moved to this new apartment and I was pregnant at the time with my first, and everything was good. And then my baby was born, nothing out of the ordinary. I want to say when she was born, I got really bad postpartum. I was by myself. It was a pandemic. She was born October 26th, and then my boyfriend would work long hours, so he would be home 8, 9, 10 o'clock the latest. Once again, this was pandemic. Nobody was with me. I was literally alone with the baby. My mom wasn't with me. It was a hard time. So at the beginning, the first couple months, everything was okay. I want to say around 2 months. 2 months, I started seeing things move, and I would tell him like, hey, like, or I would text him like, hey, things are moving in the apartment. I was hearing things shovel in the kitchen. He would think it was me. I knew I was going through postpartum. I was already seeking therapy. So that's what he thought. And then I was also in my head that maybe that's what it is. So, but get this, like I already knew about all this paranormal shit that would happen with me. So I would, to the point where I would even joke like, oh, this thing followed me to this new apartment. Like I already even, like, I don't even know if this is funny or not, but I would think I would call it like I was already accustomed to it following me. So correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm doing something wrong, but I'm already associating because I'm so used to this. Whatever it is, I don't know if it's a spirit, if it's a ghost, I don't really know, but I'm used to it because like I said, I've dealt with this for a long time since I was little. So it wouldn't scare me, but I think because I was alone and I was with the baby, it did freak me out. So like I said, just random things would move when I was on myself. The lights would flicker, turn on, the TV would turn on and off. Okay, so let me get to the scary part where I just couldn't like deal with it anymore. Let me see. So like I said, she was 2 months, 3 months in. I was sitting down one time. I was probably breastfeeding her, and this literally picture frame that was behind me, it just, and I remember this time, my boyfriend was in the kitchen, he was cooking. This picture frame was behind me, up and higher up, and while I was breastfeeding her, the picture frame just literally popped off, like flew away and popped off. And I remember freaking the fuck off and just calling him, fucking crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what if it would have fucking hit her head? And I told him, like, oh my God, come over here. Like, look what happened. And he wasn't fazed by it. He was just like, it fell. But I'm just like, dude, like, if it would have fell, it could have, like, it should have fell straight down. It shouldn't have just flew the way it flew away. Like, it just, like, he wouldn't understand the way it, like, fell. And, like, I knew he understood, but I don't think he was just, I don't know. I don't think he just wanted to get it. And I remember just, like, telling him, like, do you not understand me? Do you not hear me out? Whatever. And he was there. Another time I do remember is that we were both sleeping and the baby was, I believe, I'm not sure, she was in her bassinet. I think she was in the bassinet in the room with us, obviously in the room with us, but there was times that she would be either next to me because I was breastfeeding, but I think she was in the bassinet. And I do recall this, and I have proof. I remember someone was knocking in the room, and I was like, what the heck? And then I remember I was like, is someone knocking in the room? But I was like, I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming, this is insane. And then again, it was like knocking, like faintly, like knock, like it was like, and I was like, what the fuck? And I woke up, and I remember like waking my boyfriend. I'm like, get up, someone's in the room. It wasn't even like, and we had a 1-bedroom apartment. I'm like, someone's in the fucking room, like in our room door, like knocking. He's like, you're crazy. I'm like, I swear to you. The baby started crying, and he got up, he opened the fucking door. I had the baby monitor fucking recording, and then it hit me. Let me fucking go to my baby monitor, and it would record, and I can go on my camera on my phone to like go rewind to see if it caught anything. Well, I fucking have it on video where you can hear the fucking knocks in the room. I showed it to him, and you know, right there, he obviously believed me. I was like, what the fuck? Like, do you believe me now? And he knew, like, what was that? Like, what the fuck was that? Okay, so he was starting to believe me that crazy shit was happening. What he endured, and thank God that I didn't get to see this, because I think I would have cried. I don't know what I would have done. He was babysitting one day. I was at work. I think he stayed home, and I was at work at the time, and shit happened for him, because something had to happen for him to believe me. And
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
So I have two. One actually happened to me, and then another happened to my cousin years ago. And their story is much more creepy, demonic, scary bedtime story, but I'll tell mine because that's my actual account. So backstory is that my parents, right before COVID, had bought a new home, and the story behind this home is that it had been built by a woman and her husband. It was a custom build, and it was the woman's dream home, and she was a talented artist. So she had painted a portrait of the front of the home, the front of the house, the landscaping. It was beautiful. Sadly, that couple died in a plane crash, so the house ended up going to the woman's mother. Obviously, the house had a lot of sentimental value to the mother. She didn't want to sell it, but my parents come from a very small community where kind of everyone knows everyone, or you get to know everyone. And because my parents had a prior relationship with this woman, and she knew my parents were good people, after a while she was willing to sell the home to my parents. And this was right before COVID, and then in the middle of COVID and slightly after COVID, my parents strengthened the bond with this woman, and she's obviously an elderly woman, very up there in age. So my parents would check on her, they'd bring her stuff. My mom would bring her flowers. She'd send baked goods home to my parents. They had a very good relationship. They still have. That woman's fine. She's not dead. And over time, as a, I guess, anniversary present for moving into the home, that woman gifted my parents the portrait that her daughter had painted of the house itself. That portrait is still hung up in the walkway going into the living room downstairs. Now, this is going to be the winter of 2022. This is my first time back in the house since that portrait has gone up. And I, at the time, it's like 2 or 3 a.m., I'm laying in bed, and the layout of my room, my bed is pressed against the back wall, and from the foot of the bed forward, I can see the doorway, and when the doorway is open, I can see the stairwell that walks down into the first floor. Like, I can see the drop-off of the stairwell. And when I'm at home, I normally leave my door open at night because my parents have a cat. I like when the cat comes and sleeps with me, I leave the door open as an invitation to the cat. I'm laying in bed, pressed up against the pillows, scrolling on TikTok. My phone is directly in front of my face, and of course I have my peripheral vision on either side of my phone, and right on this side, right beside my phone case, I can see the open doorway leading out into the stairwell. Scrolling on my phone, all of a sudden, I see a tall, blonde woman, as clear as day, not any transparent entity, a tall, blonde woman walk past my field of vision, going past my doorway into, like, the other hallway. My heart immediately sinks into my stomach. There are only 2 women in that home, me and my mother, who is a short redhead. That blonde woman is not my mom. I'm having a panic attack because my first thought is, oh my God, someone has been living upstairs in my parents' home and they have no idea. So I'm freaking out. Luckily, my mom has an elderly Yorkie that she has to let out in the middle of the night because elderly doggy needs to go out. And I hear my mom downstairs fumbling with the back door. So I immediately jump out of bed and I run into the hallway, and we have a banister that looks over from the second floor into the living room where my mom is standing. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom, I saw someone upstairs. And my mom's like very groggy. She just woke up to let her dog out. She's like, what did you say? And I told her, I saw a tall blonde woman walk past my doorway upstairs. And I'm clearly in a panic. My mother is not a care in the world. One important thing about my mom is that my mom has seen and heard spirits her entire life. My mom is actually a death clairvoyant. There have been many times in my lifetime that my mom has woken up in a cold sweat out of a dead sleep, knowing immediately that someone has died or has been fatally injured in our family, and she knows exactly who it is at the time. So my mom has a very live and let live policy when it comes to ghosts. They don't bother her and she doesn't bother them. So my mom just looks at me and I'm having a panic attack, and she says, just go to bed. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And I do, because at that moment, knowing how calm my mom is, the idea that a tall blonde woman is somewhere in her home doesn't bother her at all. Knowing my mom, I'm like, okay, there's a reason for it. Maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. So I go back to my room, I shut the door, and I like put my covers over my head because if I can't see the ghost can't see me, and I eventually fell asleep after 2 to 3 hours. Next day, we're in the drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts, and my mom finally looks at me and she's like, oh hey, what happened last night? You were really freaked out. And I told her the story that I just told you guys. I was scrolling on my phone, tall blonde woman walks past the doorway just as clear as day. I could see the texture of her hair, I could see the side profile of her face. I saw a woman, and my mom grabs her phone and she scrolls through the messages that she has with the woman who sold her the home, and she pulls up a photo of the exact blonde woman that I saw that night, that very last night, and she's like, was this her? And I said yes. And that was the deceased woman who had the home custom built with her husband before they eventually passed away. And my mom said, yeah, I've been seeing her for months now. Ever since we brought the portrait into the house, I've been seeing and hearing her. She seems nice. It's technically her home. She doesn't bother me. I don't bother her. So your dad hasn't seen her, so everything's fine. And yeah, so my mother is coexisting with a ghost that my mom believes still technically owns the home. My dad has never seen this ghost. And this is the first time that I have ever seen a ghost. I've heard spirits throughout my life, but I've never physically seen one. So this one definitely took me by surprise. But yeah, that's my story. My cousin's story, once again, is much more like a scary bedtime story, but he swore until the day that he died that it happened, and I have no reason to not believe that, so I can definitely tell that one too.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I'm the baby of 6 and I have 14 nieces and nephews. Every single one of us has had multiple experiences in my super haunted childhood home that my parents still live in. I'm 31 and to this day, because of this house, I only own 2 mirrors. A bit longer of a story, grab a drink, grab a snack, go garden, you're gonna need it. I'm alone one night and I'm watching the movie The Holiday and I make popcorn for the movie. Make my popcorn on the stove, I just love it and I love to make extra so there's a shit ton for me to have all night. So I make my popcorn, I go watch the movie The Holiday, and about an hour and a half in, my popcorn bowl is empty and I want more. Kitchen and I get my popcorn. I'm waiting for the butter to finish melting in the microwave. There is the largest crash on the stove right next to me. Like someone slammed their entire body into the stove. Like someone had passed out on it or fallen on it. I'm frozen in fear. I'm not new to these violent spirits, and for me personally, I don't really like to engage in the ones that are showing you how aggressive they are. I get my popcorn and I go back to watching the movie and I pretend like nothing happened. A half hour goes by, my parents come home and I'm finally relieved. The movie's done and I'm cleaning up my mess in the kitchen and my sister comes home. The kitchen had like a halfway obstructed view from the foyer, so you had to like lean around the corner in the kitchen to see who was coming in the door. Line of vision, you could also see where the hallway started, so you could see if someone was like coming down the stairs in the foyer or like if they had just walked down the hallway. So I'm cleaning my popcorn and I say, "Hey sister, do you want any of this popcorn?" She doesn't answer me. I go to lean around the corner, ask again, and as I lean around the corner and ask, "Hey, do you want any popcorn?" I see the back half of her walk down the hallway. She still doesn't answer me. So then I'm pissed. I'm thinking that like she's just mad she had a bad night and now she's like being a cunt. Scream. I say her name. I say, "Do you want any popcorn left?" And from upstairs in my parents' room, I hear my sister say, "I'm not even downstairs yet. Give me a second." I'm standing frozen in fear. I know what I saw. My sister has red hair. She had this olive green jacket that she always wore and her blue denim. Like, it's kind of hard to miss against a beige wall background. I'm basically standing there until my sister comes downstairs because in my brain, I'm like, I do not want to see what the fuck just actually walked down the hallway. I'm good. And I hear my sister coming downstairs and she rounds the corner and she's looking at me like I'm crazy. To her and I said, "I just saw you walk down the hallway." She said, "No, you didn't. I was upstairs talking with mom and dad." I said, "No, I literally just saw the back half of you walk down the fucking hallway. I thought you were ignoring me." My sister said, "No, I was just talking to mom and dad. I don't know what you saw, but it wasn't me." I'm freaked out and I decide I'm gonna watch a little bit of SpongeBob before I go to bed, and I sit back down on the couch. The way the couches were facing in my family room at the time is you could technically see in your peripheral vision down the creepy hallway that the non-sister thing walked down. I was just too freaked out I literally couldn't go to bed, so I was gonna just take my chances with being able to see down the hallway and watch SpongeBob. 5 minutes into this show being on, I start to see something in my peripheral vision peek around the corner from the laundry room. No, to not look, to not acknowledge what's happening, because sometimes that just helps it go away. This was not one of those times. At the end of the hallway, we've got a cluster of like 4 doors. One's the laundry room, one's the playroom, one's my room, one's my sister's room. Every single one of those doors was open except my sister's room because she had gone to bed. For like 10 minutes, the thing that was peeking around the corner from the laundry room decided just to go from room to room to room and peek around the corner. At that point, I decided I have to go to bed. This thing is playing with me. Like, I'm gonna drive myself crazy trying to stay up right now. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely the kid who slept with the closet light on. So when it came time for me to turn off the room light, I like Air Jordaned as quick as I could into the bed. I flip the switch, I jump in bed, and in the milliseconds that my butt hits the freaking mattress, and I just so happen to glance into my reflection, I see a pair of lifeless hanging legs from my ceiling. Again, I'm not like staring in my reflection. I was like jumping in bed to sit and then like lay down. Like, it's that quick. By the time my head hit the pillow, in those milliseconds that it took for this whole experience to happen, the legs were gone. This happened so fast. Like, I shut off the light, I hit the bed, I glanced in the mirror, my head hit the pillow, and that's in the time frame that I saw it. Like, it was quick. So I do what I always do and I ignore it. I'm laying on my side, I'm listening to my gentle whispering ASMR videos, and I'm right about to fall asleep. Out of nowhere, I feel a very long fingernailed 5-fingered grip on my forearm. Down to show an example of what it felt like. Like that. Like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I could feel the strength. I could feel the grip of the nails, and it felt like my arm was on fire. Besides being pushed down the stairs, that is one of the most violent things that has ever happened to me from some type of energy spiritual realm. Shit you not, almost every single day after that happened that night, every time I looked in a mirror in that house, I saw some fucked up shit. It's to the point where I do not fuck with mirrors as an adult.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, so when I was a kid, we used to live in a pretty haunted house, and a little bit of backstory to this place is that the owner who had previously owned this place had unfortunately killed themselves. It was not done in the house, but I do believe this could have brought maybe a bit of darker energy to the place. I'm not totally sure, but as I tell these stories are going to get progressively worse. I have a few to tell. The first one being I was probably about, I don't know, 10 or 11 at this time, and my brother and my dad were wanting to go to the park to go, like, fly their drone. It was something like that, and I just really didn't want to go, so I begged and pleaded with my dad, and he finally agreed to let me stay. So we locked all the doors, whatever, like, I had the phone right beside me. Yeah, it was fine. So they left, and I was just watching my movie, whatever, and then I heard somebody, or I thought I heard somebody walk through the front door. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's weird, right? So I, like, because they had just left, like, this was probably, like, 10 minutes later, so I was like, hello, like, is anybody there? No answer. So I was like, okay, like, that's weird. So I keep watching my show, and then I start hearing, like, footsteps coming up and down the stairs. And at this point, I start getting scared, because, like, I was aware that the place was haunted, or that there was, like, something off about it for sure. Like, I had had some experiences before this, so I just tried my best to ignore it. But, I don't know, it almost seemed like that made it worse, because the second I thought that, it just started getting louder, and then we had, like, a grand piano in our living room, and a couple of the keys off the piano went off, and I was like, nope, I'm done. So I called my dad, I'm like, please come home, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I think he was pretty skeptical of this stuff, like, he didn't really believe us that much. Like, he came home and obviously inspected the whole house, but, like, yeah, like, the front door was locked, nothing was different, it was weird. And then, this story, though, this, honest to Christ, still scares me to this day. Like, it just still gives me such a weird, pitting feeling. I don't even know how to explain it. So, one night, I had this dream, and just note I had a lot of nightmares in this house, like, all the time. It was, like, almost every night, and, like, nightmares that, like, you know what I mean, and an 8 to 10-year-old probably shouldn't be having. Like, they were just odd. Like, I had this one dream about my auntie, and we were in, I think, my brother's room or something, and then all of a sudden something changed about her. Like, I knew it wasn't her, and she had, like, very, like, big hair, and all of a sudden they just turned to snakes, and they were chasing after me. And I woke up from this dream, and I fucking kid you not, my sweater was wrapped around my neck. And okay, like, to be fair, I did fall asleep with it on, so who knows, it could have, you know, but in my 21 years of being alive, I've never had something like that happen. Like, it almost seemed like it was purposely, you know? It was so fucked. And then another time I remember waking up, like, dead out of my sleep and seeing this, like, little girl sitting on my dresser. Like, she had long black hair, very pale skin, but what was weird about her, and, like, I've seen other spirits before, but she looked like, just as I was, like, staring at you, like an actor, like a living, breathing person. It was really strange to me. That's just how she showed up for me, at least. But I just kind of was like, you know, like, what are you doing? Like, what do you want from me? Like, no answer, nothing. So yeah, that very much freaked me out, and she was very much known for just doing that. Like, my sister had a couple experiences with her. I'd actually say a lot more experiences with her. Like, I think because she was in the basement, that's why she was a little bit more of a target. I don't know. I just know that that was kind of, like, the main place of where all that happened. Like, I remember her telling me this one time that, like, we had a cat, and he came downstairs one day, and he kind of just, like, stopped at the bathroom, and, like, how the, like, I guess flooring plan was, like, you had to, like, go through her bathroom to, like, get to her bedroom, if that makes sense. So he was just sitting at, like, her bathroom door, just, like, hissing and snarling and just, like, acting really weird, and she was kind of like, Tango, like, what are you doing? And then he just flew the fuck up the stairs, and then that was that. He didn't, like, come downstairs at all anymore that we recall. Like, it was fucking weird. But this, oh my god, this gives me chills. Like, this is, honest to Christ, really fucking creepy. So one day, my sister and her friend, let's just call her Mia, her and Mia had a sleepover, and it was the next morning, and my sister was gonna go take a shower, and so then Mia was like, okay, like, I'll just meet you upstairs, I'm gonna grab something to eat. So my sister gets out of the shower, and she sees what she thinks is Mia, like, crouching, like, at the end of her bed, like, and she's like, you know, like, Mia, what are you doing? Like, I thought you were gonna be upstairs, like, eating. No reply, nothing, just sat there. So she's like, okay, like, I'm gonna go upstairs now. So she goes upstairs, and I shit you not, her friend Mia is up there, and she's like, dude, were you just, like, downstairs? And she's like, no, like, I've been up here this whole time. And what's scary about this too is it wasn't just like us seeing this. Like I remember one time having my cousin over and we were playing in the basement, and there was this crawl space, and we always felt like something bad was in there. Like I don't know, we just always got a bad feeling about it, whatever. And the one day the curiosity I guess just got the best of us, and we ended up opening it, and I shit you not, we saw two red beady eyes like just staring back at us. And so then, you know, we ran our asses up the stairs. It was fucking scary. And like whatever this was also a bit aggressive too. Like my sister said, like a couple times like she'd have like, you know, a bowl fly off her nightstand, just something like that, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, that's why I almost kind of get poltergeist vibes from it, maybe a little bit, but I'm not like totally sure. I'm glad that we're not living there now, because yeah, we just had a lot of fucked up shit happen there.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
I know I'm a bit late, but this is a story that I kind of went through that's like unbelievable. It's not really like a ghost story, but it's scary. So the house I lived in was haunted. The person that lived next door before my actual neighbor died in the house with his dog. It was a pretty tragic story. I'm not going to get into that part because it's not about that. So there was one night I was, it was already late. I had a hard time sleeping. I closed my eyes, like getting ready to go to bed. And I'm just laying there, and then like a couple of minutes pass by. I'm just laying there. I can't fall asleep, but I'm like trying because it's late. And then all of a sudden I just see like the shape of an eye. I'm not done with my notes. A shape of an eye, like, I'm so serious. It's like appeared in my mind, like in the darkness of my mind. I'm not asleep. And then all of a sudden it's like a bunch of blank eye-shaped things started just like looking at me, but their eyes were like bright, if that makes sense. Like they're like light. There were like 6 different pairs of the eyes, like around, a dark room, and it's like their eyes were like lighting up the room, if that makes sense, or like there were like lights behind. I'm not really sure. It's been a while, and it was like really crazy to even comprehend. These things are like looking at me. I'm looking at them. They're looking, like I can feel myself looking at them. I'm like, and they're looking at me, and I just feel so much anxiety in my chest. Like at that point, like I feel my heart racing. Like I literally, like my hands are sweating, my heart's racing. I'm like not dreaming. Like this is something I'm actually feeling. I know I wasn't asleep because I woke up an hour later, like literally within the hour. And it's like I didn't fall asleep. This wasn't sleep paralysis because I wasn't awake either. I was just in this limbo state. And I was stuck there. Like I was straight up stuck there, and like these eyes, these beings were just kind of looking at each other and then looking back at me, and I didn't know what they were saying, what they were doing. I just remember like I could see my body now, but I was like frozen. Like I was frozen, and I was scared, and I could feel my heart racing, and my mind was racing, and I just wanted to say anything at all, and I could not speak. Like I was just stuck, and these like things were just all around me, just looking at me, talking about me. I didn't know what they were saying. I couldn't hear them. They were speaking like in their minds to each other, if that makes sense. I woke up, and I shit you not, like I was able to open my eyes. I shoot up out of bed, and this gray mist just darts out of my house. Like I'm telling you, like literally this gray mist was there and it was gone. I was like, I was just abducted by fucking aliens. Like I'm telling you, I was scared. I was so terrified. I remember that. Like I know that feeling of being like just absolutely like shitting my pants scared. I turned every fucking light on. I did. I turned literally every light on. This was not a big house. Like this was a tiny home, literally a tiny house. I turned all the fucking lights on. I turned the TV on. I literally put it on Disney Plus, like a Disney movie after that. And I was on the couch with my cat. We huddled in the living room. I did not go to sleep until it was daylight outside. Like, I felt so unsafe. I felt so, like, messaging people, like, asking them, like, what do you think about that? And they're just like, it sounds like you just got abducted by fucking aliens. I'm like, let's change the subject, because what? I want to think it's a dream, but at the same time, like, in the back of my mind, anyway.
Story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, this takes place when I was working at my assisted living memory care. And let me tell you, that place is so haunted. I have so many stories. The main story that gets people every time is when I tell this one. And I literally, let's just say I went home crying at the end of the night. So it was me, 3 other girls. I'm gonna leave out their name. Pretty much, we were working late, okay? So we decided, us being dumb, we decided, hey, let's make a Ouija board and go play it in the room that was not getting taken by a resident. So we're like, yeah, let's do that. So pretty much we make it, we go into my room, or the room, and I have flashlights that we use to communicate with ghosts, right? Turn on flashlight if you're here, turn off, whatever, you get the point. Pretty much, we put down the Ouija board on, there was like a table in there. We put the flashlight on the dresser. So keep in mind, Ouija board's on a different table, flashlight is on a dresser, okay? Pretty much, we open up the board, and we ask if anyone's there. It goes to yes. Everyone's freaking out, okay? Everyone's thinking it's getting moved, whatever, okay? But pretty much, we asked who's here with us, and I'm not gonna say the name of the resident who lived there previously, but it spells out that name, and that was the one who died prior. Right at that point, the flashlight on the dresser flies off and hits the wall. Flies off. Everyone is freaking out, okay? At this point, I'm like, we need to shut this down. Everybody runs out of the room, okay? So I grab one of the girls and I'm like, you gotta help me close this out. Like, this is dangerous if we leave it open. So she comes back, we close it out, it's fine. I pick up my flashlight, practically broken at this point, my flashlight is. We end up leaving, lock the door, we're done, okay? I end up leaving at this point. I don't know exactly, but my shift was over. So I think it was the 3 girls that stayed for the overnight. Keep in mind, I was meaning to throw this Ouija board out into the dumpster, but I was so scared I ran to my car and I threw that in the back. Pretty much on my way home, I'm just like, I'm very scared, okay? I get pulled over, okay? And here's the funny part. I get pulled over, the cop comes, takes his flashlight, looks in my car, and he looks to the back and he said, that thing has you cursed. Okay, and here's where it gets freakier. Right at that same time, I get a call from one of the girls. And on the call, she showed me videos. I don't have the videos, I didn't save them. But she showed me videos. They've heard like a big bang coming from that room. And apparently, like, the room was, like, messy. Like, there was, like, paper crumbs everywhere. There was, I don't know if the table fell or, like, the bed sheets, something happened. But pretty much the room was not how we left it, okay? So they start freaking out. Like, what the heck is going on? I'm freaking out. I have the Ouija board in my back car, or, like, my back seat. The cop's standing right there. I'm on the phone with this girl. Like, what the hell is going on? So anyways, I get home, I leave that Ouija board in the garage, and there's another story where me and my cousins played it, and shit went down, let's just say. So my brother did do something with the board, but pretty much here, do not make your own Ouija board, yet play with one. They are dangerous, and that is not something to mess with.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8 years old.
So back when I was in college, my friends and I rented like this townhouse apartment thing, and while we were living there, it became very apparent that there was a ghost that lived in the basement. the basement was like a fully finished basement. So we had set up our desks down there to like, that was going to be where we did like all of our homework and stuff like that. While I was down there, like I ended up never doing my work down there. I would either do it in the living room or up in my room, up in my bedroom, or like in the kitchen area, just because like I was never comfortable being down there, because I could always tell that we nicknamed the ghost Harold. For some reason, we always felt it was a male ghost. So we nicknamed him Harold because we never knew his name or anything like that. I could always feel him down there, like just around, and it just made me feel very uncomfortable. I would just tense up, and I could feel him, my, you know, your energy, you could feel it. He would just linger around down there. He wasn't malevolent or anything, like he was just there. Like even when you went down to the laundry room, which was right off where the place where we would do our, like where our desk was, like you would be in there, and then you would know Harold would wander in there too, and you would just know that, oh, Harold's in there doing your laundry with you. And it would always make me like very anxious and stuff like that, just because you knew you weren't alone, but you were also alone. So I always hated doing my laundry and stuff, like when I was by myself or when it was at night or like whatever. But like I said, he never came upstairs or anything, and I don't know why. He just never did. But the basement door was right off the kitchen. So there was one night in particular, because Harold wasn't malevolent. He was actually kind of playful, and like sometimes he would actually like mess with the basement door. Like he would just kind of like open and shut it, or like jiggle the handle. Like he just kind of like did things like that. But there was one night I was there by myself. My friends had like night classes that night and I didn't. So I was doing my work or whatever at the kitchen table. And Harold was in one of his playful moods, but he was like really playful that night, and he was opening and shutting the door, like just kind of being annoying. So I said to Harold, like, could you please stop? Like, I'm trying to work. Well, he took that as like a challenge, and he was like opening and shutting the door and opening and shutting the door, like really being annoying about it, to the point where I got up and I went and I pushed the door shut, and then he opened it up again, and like pushed it shut, and he opened it up again, to the point where then I'm like actually holding the door back. And it was as if like somebody on the other side was pushing the door open. Like there was a human there, but there wasn't, because there was nobody there. It was just Harold. And by the way, there's no like window or like air vents or anything. So there's nothing you could say like, oh, there was like a wind or something like that. There was nothing there that could be opening this door other than like another person or some kind of spiritual presence or something like that. So I'm there pushing this door, and there is literally something there on the other side pushing it back at me. Like I cannot physically close this door, to the point where I take one of the kitchen chairs and I push it to try to close the door and stop it from opening. And he's still there trying to jiggle the handle. And finally I said, Harold, I said, stop it, would you please? You're scaring me. And like I yelled at him, and that's when he finally stopped. But that was really freaky, and that's the only time he ever actually scared me, because he normally didn't do things like that. I don't know if he just thought it was like a game at first when I said, it's like, stop it, Harold, like I'm trying to work. Like I don't know what was up with him that night. But after that, he was pretty quiet for a while. And to the point where like me and my friend actually commented on it. We're like, wow, we haven't heard from Harold in a while. And don't you know, the next day, he literally slammed that door so loud that it shook the entire apartment. But yeah, that was one of my unbelievable ghost stories that are entirely true.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I can tell you a ghost story that is unbelievable but is also true. So, my name's Michael. I'm a paranormal researcher with lychgate.paranorm here in Ontario, Canada. But the case I'm thinking about happened 25 years ago with a group called Full Moon Ghost Research. This case didn't just have me believe in the paranormal, but it also had me believe in mediums. So a couple of weeks before I went to do an investigation at this haunted fish and chip shop, a lady reached out to me on the internet asking if she would be able to join us in some investigations, because she's been looking for a group to join. So my friend and I, we went out to the town she was from and met her and her boyfriend at a pub. He asked if he would be able to come along as well, and I didn't have a problem with that. He then said that he was a medium. So the other investigator was very excited about the prospects of having a medium with us. I wasn't. I always thought that, you could just say, oh, there's something over here, there's something over there, and it would just scatter the team, and I didn't put much stock in it. I said, okay, like, he can come, he can hold a camera just as good as anyone else. So I ended up going to the location of the haunted restaurant, and it was just me and the owner, and we walked around, and she explained to me all the different things that have happened over the years at this restaurant. The one thing I'm going to concentrate on, is something in the basement. So the basement had 3 rooms and a bathroom. The room that I'm going to talk about was the middle room, and it had like a freezer and a furnace and a few shelves on the side. That's about it. Now, she told me that a few years earlier, she hired some electricians to come in to upgrade the electrical so she could have like a big freezer down in the basement. The younger guy that was working, he was down there, and he thought his boss was standing behind him, and he went to ask his boss a question. It wasn't his boss, it was the spirit of a tall man wearing a trench coat and a hat, and looked very angry. And after he looked at the guy for a couple seconds, the guy disappeared. He jumped up, he ran out of the building, wouldn't go back into the building. So just before we went to start doing the investigation, I went to go downstairs and use my EMF reader to take EMF readings. And the psychic said, you'd like to come down in the basement with me. And so I said, sure. And as we were going down the stairs, he said, there's something down here. And I thought, of course there's something down here. It's a basement. Basements and attics. That's what everybody says, right? But anyway, when we got to the main landing and we started to walk, I purposely went to walk past that room, and he stopped at the middle room and said, there's something in here. And then we walked in, and he pointed at the exact same corner and said, there's a tall man there in a trench coat wearing a hat, and he's really angry, and he's just like looking at us like, get the hell out of here type of thing. So I asked, do you think anybody could get harmed from the spirit? And he said no. So it had me questioning things, because there was nothing on the internet about a spirit that was in the basement. Now, there's a few things that happened during the investigation. If you guys want to hear more, just leave it in the comments, and I'll bring up some more information. But at the end of the investigation, I was going downstairs because I was like, I'm going to take some pictures of the basement with my night vision. It was, a pretty big deal back then, and it would make pictures look kind of creepy. So I went to go downstairs, and another team member followed me, and he had a tape recorder. Now, I don't know why he came down with me, but it was a really good thing he did. So when I was walking towards the bathroom, I felt a pulling on my pant leg. And I said, I think something's pulling on my pant leg. And he said, really? And I go, maybe I'm stepping on it. Like, I don't know. Like, I try to explain it away. It's part of being an investigator. You try to explain these things away. So I said, maybe I just stepped on it. And then I got to the bathroom, and I seen there was a glare in the mirror. So I got down on one knee to start taking pictures, and something grabbed my calf muscle. Now, it was firm. I definitely knew it was. I felt all fingers. I felt the palm squeezing my calf muscle, and it would release and then squeeze, and it did it 3 times. And then I said, "Hey, like, I know you're here," and then it stopped. And then I finished taking the pictures, and then I went back upstairs and I told everybody, this is what just happened. Now the medium was upstairs, and he started looking at these pictures that they had on the wall. Like, she had a bunch of pictures of the place when it was like in the 1800s, and he went up to this one picture of it when it was like a log cabin, and he pointed at this woman that was standing beside the log cabin and said it was her. She's the one that grabbed your leg. Which I was kind of surprised, because I was like, there is no mention of women spirits in here at all. Now, fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm listening to the audio, and right at the point where you hear me say, "Something's got my leg," you hear a woman's voice saying, "Michael, Michael, Michael," clear as day. I wouldn't believe it if someone told me, but it happened. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more, just let me know. This is my first video, and I'm going to make more if you enjoy it. Thanks.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
My stitch is not working, so I'm hoping that the way that I've done it now works. I love all the stories under the stitch, by the way. It just confirms a lot for me, because I'm a self-doubter and I just doubt a lot of the things that I see. These stories that I've seen people stitch, I have had the same experience also. So it's just like, yes, another win for me and a no win for my self-doubt. So we're hitting 2009 going into 2010. New Year's is upon us, and I'm a teenager in my mid-teens. I'm in my room, I'm on Facebook, I'm watching a DVD movie, and life is pretty good. Now, every night or so, my mother and I would talk it out. So I'd go into her room, sit on the edge of her bed, and we'll just talk about the future, the past. Oh, my video's stuffing up and I don't even know why. We'll just change the filters, is probably the filter. So it was just a way for us to spend some time together. So it was getting to the end of the night, and there were no lights on in the house, except for my room. And before my mum wanted to go to sleep, she asked me if I can go into the kitchen and get her a drink of water. So I did exactly this. I went into the kitchen. Her room is just right next to the kitchen, but when you're walking into the kitchen, there's a hallway that goes down to my room. Now, where the kitchen is placed, there is a lounge in front of it, and this is where I saw what I saw. So I get the drink of water. It's still dark because I don't need the light. The moon is shining through the lounge. I'm walking past the lounge to go to my mum's room. I freeze. Like, my body just automatically freezes, and then my head automatically turns to the lounge. There is a huge silhouette, and all I can think of is dog. Dog, dog, dog. And I'm like, what? And all I can see is 2 yellow eyes. And I don't know what this is, but I could just hear like, like, what is that? But the eyes is what stood out to me, and they were yellow, and it was like it was about to come and pounce at me, and my body's not moving. I can't move, but I'm keeping everything in, and it all just happened in 1 second, but it felt like it was an eternity. So I brushed it off because I'm thinking maybe it's late. Maybe that was nothing, but my heart is pounding inside, but I'm not going to tell my mum about this. My mum knows about me seeing spirits, but my mum doesn't have time for it. In this stage of her life, she just didn't have time for that. So I give her the water, and then I close the door, and then I'm off to bed. And I'm not scared at this point. I'm actually just being myself now. Because I've got me phone, I've got me Facebook, I've got me DVDs playing in the background. You know, life is but bittersweet. So probably half an hour to an hour has passed. My body automatically gets up from the bed, so it just rises from the bed. I'm still up, but I don't know why I'm moving. I'm just like, okay, what's happening here? I'm just moving. And then I have a lot of weird stuff in my room. I'll tell you, the kid that I was I had a lot of SpongeBob stuff, a lot of plushies, a lot of just weird trinkets in my room. My eyes are looking at the stick that I have, and I'm like, okay. And then my body, my head moves towards looking at the door. You know how the door has a gap between the floor and the bottom of the door? That is what I am fixated on. I don't know what's happening right now, but everything's frozen on my body and I'm feeling that feeling again. And the one thing that I can hear, it's as if someone's telling me something is coming and it's right outside your door. And I'm fighting with whatever the hell's telling me this, because I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. Like, wow. So this is where the drama begins. My body is still in its same position. My eyes are looking down at the gap between the door and the floor. And I have this feeling, even with the voices that are telling me something is behind that door. And it's really heavy. And it's almost as if I cannot breathe. It's the same feeling I got when I saw the silhouette of the big dog in the lounge. And all of a sudden, all I hear are these humongous boots going from the top of the hallway, so where my mum is, down halfway to me. And it sounds like this. It stops halfway, and I'm in complete shock at this point. Sorry, give me a second. Give me a sec. My nails are very dull at the moment. So, but you have to imagine the sound in the wall was like, ow. But it was as if it was like claws on the walls. Still stuck in position. I am afraid for my life. And then all of a sudden, the voice said, get up right now and grab the bat or whatever is in the corner of the room, because it's going to come into your room and it's coming for you. I'm freaking out. Oh my God. So I get up, I get the whatever the hell it was, I have it in my hands, and I'm standing at the door. I'm looking at the door because at this point, the only thing I can hear is like footsteps. Just like someone coming up to my room door. And it wasn't like the big banging, like big boots. It was literally like someone just walking up to your door, and it was right at the door. And my body's coming closer to the door. And I'm breathing. And I'm like, oh my God, something's here, something's here, something's here. And then I just say, who is it? Now, I know you shouldn't talk to it, but here we are. I ain't got no choice. The last thing I want is it to come to my bloody room. So I'm fight and flight mode. Gave it a few minutes. Just stopped. And then put my hands on the door. I open it. And then I've got the light switch next to me, the hallway light, which is fantastic. Turn the hallway light on. Nothing's there. Who's in my house? Okay, so my auntie's in my house, my grandmother's in my house, my mum's in the house. Now, at the top of the hallway, my mum is in that room. Next door to me is my auntie. Up the top of the house is my grandmother. So my first instinct is to look around. Nothing's there. I'm about to scope out the place. And I'm hoping that either my mum or grandma or auntie have just woken up. But I know in my heart, what I had experienced would have not been them at all. Go to the top of the house. It's not my grandmother because she's snoring her ass off. I go back to my mum's room. Her door's open. But that could have been anything. But I'm just like saying to myself, no. Because my mum is snoring. Basically, she's asleep. She's dead to the world. Go check up on my auntie. I'm like, please, just like maybe she went to the bathroom. She's snoring her ass off, so she hasn't woken up at all, and I'm just left there by myself. Me, myself, and I. So I go into the room. I'm confused. I know what happened, but I am confused as heck. Sitting on the edge of my bed. By the way, that experience never happened again. Just more things started happening a couple of years later. So yeah, that's my story. I have so many more to share. If anyone wants to hear it, let me know.
I've been trying to stitch this video for like 2 days. Okay, so for whatever reason, I can't stitch the ghost trend video. All my audio goes out. But I need to tell y'all this ghost story. When I was 23, I lived in Dover, Delaware on an Air Force base. And we lived in military housing. And this house was old. They were all old. Ours was really old because they had like renovated, and they had a whole other section on the other side of the base of the brand new ones. But we had the old ones with the old creaky wooden floors, like just very old, drafty ass old house. But I love that little house. And I can't say that it wasn't ever creepy. And don't talk about my nails, y'all. I'm in the middle of changing them out, okay? But I can't say that it wasn't always creepy, because it was. But it was like subtle, like you could hear like little things moving around, like kind of stuff you could explain. The only thing we really couldn't explain is sometimes we saw a shadow guy, but we were like, you know, he over there, he ain't bothering us, so we just gonna act like we don't see that man's, okay? But this particular night, I was at home alone. My husband used to work overnight for damn near our whole marriage. And it was late, it was like 8 o'clock, and he wasn't gonna be back till the morning. He was already gone. So luckily for me, my baby, who was probably about 6 months old, was the best sleeper ever. That man would sleep like from 8 to 8 every night. So this was in the Stone Ages, so I still had cable. So I'm scrolling trying to find something to watch, and I come upon a Criminal Minds marathon. I'm like, bet. I get my blanket out. I'll go in the kitchen. I start making me some peanut butter crackers, because we were also very poor, and that's all I had to eat. So I make my peanut butter crackers, and I get the knife, and you know the universal sign for I'm not done yet with this knife. I just lay it on the edge of the sink, and then I go in the living room, and I get settled in for my Criminal Minds marathon. Everything in the house is quiet. Baby's been asleep. The monitor is next to me. The only thing on in the house is the television and the little light in the kitchen. And I think the light in the hallway upstairs, but you can't see that light from downstairs. So everything is off almost. So I watch 2 episodes, and all of a sudden I start hearing like on the wall behind me. Now, these houses were like townhouses, so we shared one wall. So I'm thinking, you know, I think it was a weekend night, actually. So it's probably a party. If you've been in the military, you know we was partying, okay? So a lot of parties. I'm thinking maybe they're just having a party or something is going on over there. So, but then it just keeps growing in intensity, and it's like right behind my head. And it's just... I'm like, what the fuck? I can't even like reconcile what that kind of noise would be. And then it changes from that to like... So now I'm like, if y'all wake my baby up, we're gonna have some problems. So I grab the baby monitor, go next door, knock on the door, and I'm like, yo, y'all are just making, like I hear a lot of noise in my house. If you could just keep it down, my baby's sleeping, blah, blah, blah. And she was looking at me like I was crazy, because she was like, I'm not doing anything. She was like, I'm here by myself. And I was like, oh. She was like, that's really weird. I was like, yeah, that's really weird. She was like, well, I'm sorry. She was like, it's not me. I'm not doing anything. I'm home alone, whatever. She was like, I hope you find out what it is. And I was like, damn, okay, that is fucking weird. So I just go home and I'm like, I don't know. So I skip back over to the house. And when I get back in the house, I notice that the bathroom light is on. Now, if I'm sitting on the couch, like I'm facing this way, the TV's over there, the bathroom is kind of like, I could see it out of my peripheral vision. So I see the light is on, and I haven't been to the bathroom all this time. So I'm like, you know, you just tell yourself you must have just not turned the light off or whatever. So I go in the bathroom, I'm like, might as well use the bathroom, turn the light back out, go back in the kitchen, make more peanut butter crackers, come back to the couch, sit down, resume the evening. No sooner than 2 seconds I sat down, I hear doom, 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 doom on the wall. Right as I hear that, the peanut butter knife falls to the ground. About 12 seconds after that, the back door flies open. And I'm sitting there, I'm still sitting on the couch because all this is just happening in rapid succession. And I'm just sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And this was like 2010, I want to say. So I don't think texting was really high up on the priority. I don't remember. I feel like I still might have had a flip phone or a kick phone. I'm old. I don't know, but I wasn't texting nobody. I wasn't calling anyone. I wasn't texting anyone. I was just sitting there like, what the fuck? So my brain decides to believe that it's the wind. Because it wasn't the first time that the back door flew open because of the wind. Like I said, this house is old, very drafty. So I get up, pick up the knife, put it back in the sink, close the door. I come back, the bathroom light is on. I said, okay, I know I'm playing. I know I'm tripping. Go in there. I turn the light out. I come back. I sit down. I hear the bathroom light click back on. The switch is going up every time. And the light's back on. So now I'm fucking terrified. I can't talk myself out of this. So right after I hear the click, my baby starts screaming. And like I said, he's a little bitty baby. And this wasn't like a I woke up and I'm scared kind of cry. That man was screaming like he was in trouble. I took them steps 2 at a time. I'm running up these stairs. Y'all, I get in my baby's room. There are lights dancing all over his ceiling. Bright white lights all over his ceiling, just blinking. So by the time I get to his room, he's not even crying anymore. He's kind of sitting up and he's looking and he's clapping. And I'm like, And he wasn't really old enough either yet to have like toys that did all that blinking and all those noisy shits. He didn't have all those yet. And our house backed up to a field. So it was pitch black out of his window. There is no light anywhere. I'm like, where are these blinking lights? And they're just steady blinking, twinkling, twinkling, twinkling. So I was like, oh, fuck no. I grab my baby. I run down the steps. Y'all, I get downstairs. The refrigerator door is wide open. The knife I had put back inside the sink is on the floor. The patio door back open and the fucking light to the bathroom is on. And my blanket is on the floor in the living room. No. Grab a baby bag. I grab a bottle out of the fridge. I'm out. I'm in the garage. I'm in the car. I'm like flying out of there. I call my husband. I'm like, oh, something's in the house. Come and get us. He is like, what? Thankfully, he just worked on the base, obviously. So he just a few minutes away. He comes. He calms me down. He's trying to calm me down. He's holding the baby. He's like, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. I'm telling him the whole story. He's looking at me like I have lost all my mind. And I'm like, I swear. I said, it's been the craziest fucking night. Now, mind y'all, all this has transpired in about an hour's time. So he convinces me to go back to the house. Y'all, we got back in that house. My blanket was back on the couch. The bathroom light off. Refrigerator door closed. Patio door closed. Everything normal. The Criminal Minds, one of the episodes is starting to wrap up. Like the little credit things are rolling on the screen. Show's still going. It looks like I had just stood up in the middle of watching television and just walked out. Nothing is out of place. And when I tell y'all, nothing else ever, we lived there another year or more. Nothing else to that level of creep happened the entire time that we stayed there. I still do not understand what the fuck that was. I don't know, but it was scary.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I've already tried stitching her video and a bunch of other videos, but for some reason TikTok won't produce sound when I stitch the videos, so I just decided to do it this way. I would also like to preface that I don't usually do story times. This is not what I usually post, so if this is sucky, my bad. Okay, so basically, I'm a child of divorce. My parents have always been divorced, and we all used to live in California where my parents would co-parent. But then when I turned 8, I think, my dad took his new wife and his 2 kids to Utah so that they could live there, which left just me and my mom in California. And then when I turned 9, she was sick of being the only one there with me, so she was like, we're moving to Iowa to live with my parents. She wanted to live in Iowa because she was trying to start a career out as a nurse, and she figured that my grandparents would be able to help her out starting that career. And they did, and we lived there with them for 2 years in a little town called Walnut, Iowa. And after the 2 years were up, she had started her career as a nurse, so we saved up money and we got our own apartment in Avoca, Iowa, which is 15 miles, I would say, up the road from Walnut, Iowa. So I'm about 11 or 12 by the time that we move into this house in Avoca, Iowa. This house is in, I would say it's like almost exactly in the center of town, and it's a very large white house, clearly very old. It was one of the oldest homes in the town. It was built in, I think, the late 1700s or early 1800s. And at some point, they converted the home into apartments. So they split the top and the bottom level, so they're each their separate unit now. When we originally moved in, we were given the top half of the home. This is also important to note, but we had a cat at the time. Okay, so anyways, when you walk in through the front door of the upstairs unit, it's on ground level, and there are interior stairs that take you up. When you reach the top of the stairs, you can either go right or left, and to the right is mine and my mom's bedrooms. Her bedroom was at the end of the hall, and my bedroom was to the side on the right. If you go to the left, you're met with a bathroom door, and through the bathroom door is a living room, but if you take a left at the bathroom door, there's the kitchen. Okay, so by the time we moved into this home, my mom has secured a job as a nurse, but she was working the night shift, which meant she was gone Monday through Friday from, I would say, 11 p.m. to 7 or 8 a.m., which would leave just me and my cat chilling there at home at night. And for a few weeks, I noticed that there would be random sounds coming from the house, random things falling where no one was in those rooms, and my cat would always act weirdly every time he heard something. It never really bothered me because I was just like, it's an old house, it's gonna make weird noises. But my cat seemed genuinely freaked out by it, and after about a month or two of living there, it wasn't just noises that were bothering him anymore. It was just random stuff. I would walk into a room and he would be in his territorial position with his back arched and his tail up, and he'd be meowing and hissing at this corner of the wall. It didn't really matter what room it was in, but specifically my room in the kitchen. Usually after his hissing and meowing fits were over, he would sprint around the house like he was being chased by something, and he had never done this before. He was an old cat. He was 15 years old at this point, and I'd never seen him act like this before. But I never told my mom about any of this because we just didn't have the greatest relationship when I was growing up, and also I was just what is she gonna do about weird noises and the cat being weird? After a few more months of living there, I noticed that every time I walked into my bedroom that I felt like I was being watched, or there was someone over my shoulder, hunched over me. I always felt like there was someone behind me. Also, the layout of my room is super important, so I'm going to explain that real quick. So basically, you walk in through the front door, not the front door, but my bedroom door, and the room was kind of L-shaped. There was a narrow space, and at the end of the narrow space, there was a window here and a window here. And like I said, the room was L-shaped, so you could either go into this narrow space, or you could turn into this area, which was a wall where I kept my dresser, and then on the other side of the wall was a closet to go in. My bed was in that narrow space where the windows are, so the back of my head would be at the front of this window, and if I turned this way, my head would be facing the window on the other side. One weekend when my mom was home, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday night. It was getting late and my mom was like, we need to go to bed. So it's like 12, maybe 1 in the morning when we finally get to bed. And as soon as I step into my room, I'm automatically just like, I have an uneasy feeling and I'm just like, ugh, like, I don't like the way this room feels right now. Keep in mind, I am still like 11, 12, so I don't know what these feelings of discomfort are. I just kind of like brush it off and try to go to bed. Eventually, after a few hours of tossing and turning, I finally fall asleep. And then in the morning, it was about 6 a.m. I'd say. I don't know exactly, but I know like the sun was rising and it hadn't completely risen yet. I was woken up by something. I still don't know what woke me up, but I was awake. So after I'm like, okay, I'm awake, I turn my head because I kept my water bottle on the floor next to me. I turn my head to grab my water bottle and I see a little girl staring out of my window. I only see the back of her, but I could tell she was wearing a white dress that was about mid-length, probably came to her knees. She couldn't have been older than 11, which was how old I was at the time. She kept her back facing me, and she was just staring out the window. She had tight bunched curls up here and a bow at the back of her head, which made me think, oh, like 40s, 50s era maybe. At this time, I still thought that I was dreaming, so yes, it scared me to see a little girl there, but I was also like, maybe this is a dream? After a few seconds of looking at her, she vanishes. Just gone. Poof, gone. I'm like, oh, that was weird. But then I see something out of the corner of my eye again, and I look. Next to where she was standing was the corner where that wall ended, and you could go into that divot where the closet is. At that corner, I see a man staring down at me. He has a black hoodie on and black sweatpants and dark eyes, dark hair, pale face, and he's just staring down at me. I, at this point, am like, okay, this isn't a dream, like, what's happening? So I keep looking up at him. Mind you, I'm laying in bed like this, looking up at him, because he's staring down at me. And at this point, I was just frozen with fear, staring back up at him, because I didn't know what to do. And a few minutes go by of me just staring at him, and I see yet again something out of the corner of my eye. And then I see a very tall Victorian woman with her hair pulled up in a bun like this. She had gray hair, and she was wearing a long maroon Victorian gown. She walked out of my closet and out of my bedroom door, and then she was gone. But I looked back to the corner of my bedroom where I once saw the man standing, and he was still there, staring at me. He was the only one of the spirits that didn't leave. Now, eventually I get up the courage to turn and face my body, so I was facing the wall so I didn't have to look at him anymore. And after a few more seconds go by, I look behind my shoulder to see if he's still there. And he's right fucking there. His face is right by my face. So I screamed and ran out of my room into my mom's room, and I slept there for 2 months. I wouldn't go into my room no matter what for any reason. My mom didn't ever believe me until recently, but we did end up moving out of that house.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I grew up in a haunted house. Nothing crazy, nothing scary. Named her Paula. She was a friendly old lady ghost. That's how I would describe her. She was sweet, nothing like, she would never get angry, like nothing scary. Just scary the fact that you live with a ghost in this house and you know you are not alone when you're home alone. So like you just know that she's there. You could see like things in the corner of your eye. She was definitely very active in the hallway, and in the kitchen. I would sometimes hear things in my room, like nothing like crazy. It was just like, you know, those prank jewelry boxes. I would hear that, and I never had one. Humming, you could hear humming, nothing, you know, nothing too crazy. She was just friendly. I think she might have lived there at one point. Maybe she died there. I don't really know. I don't know her real name, so we just called her Paula. She is still there. My mom lives, you know, obviously still there. So they are just coexisting. Spooky things happen, but you know, nothing my mom hasn't been used to. So one day in high school, I had a friend come over, and I told her before that there is a ghost in my house. I would tell usually everyone that would come over, just like, hey, like, it's creepy, it's not gonna hurt you. So she, you know, take it or not, believe it or not, I don't care. I warned you. So we are home alone in the house, and we are getting ready to go. So me and her in my room, doors closed, and we're talking, and then all of a sudden we hear, "What are you guys doing?" The look on this girl's face. She was so scared. We ran out of the house because obviously Paula has never spoken to us. Paula would always just make herself known. She never communicated with us. So that was a first for me, and definitely I was a little freaked out, but nothing like, you know, it wasn't angry. It was just, what are you guys doing? Kind of thing. And my friend, she was, you know, scared. She ended up coming back, though, to hang out again a couple times after. So that was cool. She would just never leave the group that we were all hanging out in. Like, she would just never go to the bathroom alone, stuff like that. But we have so many stories, like happy stories of this house. It's hilarious.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Here's a story of how I slept in a dead woman's bed for a couple years and didn't realize that was the reason I had been haunted for a while. My boyfriend, who is now my husband, and I had been dating for a little bit. He had rented a room in a woman's house because, you know, mortgages in LA aren't cheap. She used to live with her sister, who had died of cancer, and she'd kind of nursed her while she was at the house. And, you know, unfortunately, after her sister died, she couldn't really afford to live there by herself. So my husband rented a room. And then this roommate got pregnant and was planning to raise the baby by herself. You know, no big deal, whatever. So she definitely really needed that extra income. So we were waiting for the baby to come. I was helping her set up his room. Everything was fine, nothing weird. And she asked if my husband could move from the guest room into basically it's like the den, but it had it was huge. Nobody ever went in there. It had a fireplace. It was really nice. It had a bar. And because she wanted that guest room for the baby, you know, right next to her room. Makes sense. Also, like, yes, I would like to move from the room that was right next to her room, just, you know, for privacy's sake. So he moved over there, and she said, "Oh, hey, I have an extra bed in the garage. Do you want it?" And he was like, "Oh, sure," because it was a bigger bed than the one he had. I think it was like a king size or something. So we moved the bed into the den when we did all the swapping of rooms and everything. Eventually, the roommate went to labor, and that's when things started getting weird. I don't know if people remember those perpetual motion things. So it was like something that like you hit it and it like just keeps moving. It's like battery powered or whatever. The day she ends up going to the hospital, we flick the little dolphin, because she really loved dolphins. Her sister was big on dolphins. And so that was in the den where we were, you know, living. I wasn't there all the time. Just every now and then I would sleep a couple nights a week. So, you know, we flicked that little dolphin thing and it just continually moved and moved. And as the days passed, she ended up needing a C-section, an emergency C-section. So she was in the hospital for like a good 3-4 days. And the entire time she was in the hospital, the little dolphin was still going around and around and around. And we were like, wow, that's crazy. Like, that thing works really well. And she finally came home and the dolphin stopped. And we were like, let's check out the batteries on this bad boy. And yeah, the batteries had been removed, so it was just moving on its own while she was gone. Nobody else was there to mess with it. It was just us. So we're like, oh, that's weird. But anyway, so once we got settled with the baby and everything, that's when things started getting kind of ramped up. There was a big like decorative fan over the bed in the new room that we were in, and it was constantly, you'd hear it tapping. And we're like, oh, maybe it's like a breeze or something. No, there was no vents, no windows, nothing to make it do that. And we're like, ooh, that's weird. On that fan, dolphins. We're like, okay, all right, let me see. And that was when I started getting visited at night by this shadow person standing next to my side of the bed. And for the longest time, I thought it was just my boyfriend. I don't know why. I thought, like, he's a huge, like, 6'3", like, 300-pound dude. And this was just a slim shadow just standing next to the bed. And I thought, you know, maybe he's just over there going to get something from the closet or the dresser that was right next to me. Eventually, at one point, I said, babe, what are you doing? What do you need? And that's when I heard him snoring on the other side of me. Yeah, so that sucked. And that happened a lot. And, I mean, you know, whatever. I'd hoped it was maybe my boyfriend's dad who'd passed away when he was 19. I don't know. I don't know what my thinking was. So that's also about the time any photos taken with your point and shoot, you know, your digital cameras back in 2002, any photos would end up being, there'd be orbs in like all the pictures where there are dolphins. There's a lot of dolphins in that house because, you know, family loved dolphins. And whenever the baby was in a photo, orbs everywhere. It's like bananas because you're like, what the heck? Oh my God. Like, so that's when we started thinking like, okay, so the sister who died really liked dolphins and never got to meet her nephew. And all this stuff started when the baby came home and when we moved that bed out of the garage into the den. So whatever, we just chalked it up to maybe the sister's here watching over the baby. Whatever. So, you know, you'd hear like there's always somebody standing next to my bed at night, constantly. And eventually my boyfriend and I move into a place of our own. We bring the bed and everything still happens. There's still somebody standing next to my bed. Sometimes it'd be leaning over me, just like, you know, breathing in the essence of a girl who just wants some friggin' sleep. And please save me. It was terrible. And at that point, I just got used to it. And I was like, this is my life now. I guess I'm just going to be haunted forever because that's just my life. And my boyfriend never saw it. He never heard the things. He never saw the thing. He would see my reaction when I would freak out and go immediately run over to his side of the bed. Not run, but, you know, like roll over. When the things would come, he'd feel me pulling the covers over my head. You know, it was just a long torment of this stupid thing standing next to my side of the bed. It was literally years after we moved into that bed and then moved the bed into our place. That bed came with us to 2 different locations, I think. And the thing followed us every time. And then finally we get married. We got gifts for, you know, money gifts. And we're like, let's buy a new bed. We deserve it. And so we buy a new bed. We get rid of the old one. And the thing stopped coming to my side of the bed. And after a while, I was like, wow, thank God, you know, now that's gone. And then I asked my husband, I'm like, hey, do you know where this bed came from? The bed that we just got rid of? Because I start putting, 7 and 7 together, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's the whole trigger here, because I'm an idiot. It took me a really long time. It was like 3 years. And he was like, oh yeah, I think it was Carol's bed. And I'm like, Carol? Like Maggie's sister, Carol? His roommate was Maggie. And he's like, yeah, it was Carol's bed. And it was like, her bed at the house? And he was like, yeah. It was like the bed that she died in. And he was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, oh wow. Yeah, that she died in that bed. I'm like, okay. Sure wish I'd realized that a long time ago. But yeah, so that's how I ended up sleeping in a bed a woman died in for a couple years. And I was haunted by something standing/leaning over me for a solid 3 years. And how it all started with a baby being born into a house where a person died. And, the gift that keeps on giving, a haunted bed that your boyfriend forgot to tell you person had died in. And that's my story. Wonderful. Yeah, we don't have, we've now moved on to a new bed, and not haunted as much by that ghost. There's been others. I think my youngest is like haunted. But yeah, so that's my story of how I slept in a dead person's bed. Thanks, babe.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Alright, y'all. I'm a little spooked out. This is the second time I'm telling you the story with this trend. I tried to stitch her, and when I tried to stitch her, I recorded like 2.5 minutes of this video, and it was muted, and it would not let me turn the volume up. Okay, anyway, here's my story again. So, when I was, little backstory real quick. When I was in middle school, I had this group of friends where we would all stay at someone's house, and we would go out late at night and kind of just, go do stupid kid stuff and run around the neighborhood. Because his mom was not really attentive, and her room was way upstairs, so we were able to sneak out easily. Anyways, so one day, we decided to make a Ouija board out of a cardboard box, and someone drew the numbers on it, whatever. We were being dumb kids. We just thought it would be fun to do because his house was haunted, so we wanted to see what was there, you know what I mean? And back then, we didn't have all the apps and the devices that we have nowadays. Or at least we didn't have access to it. So, we're doing this thing, and it's like giving us a name, and all this weird stuff. Like, we started doing it. We did the whole thing we had to do before we started, whatever. And we're doing it outside on his front porch because we didn't want to do it in the house. Anyways, so we're doing it, and it's giving us all this information. It ended up giving us this address that was down the street. So we ended up walking to this address, and the house was like not boarded up, but it basically was boarded up. Like, all the blinds were down. The house didn't have anything in the front yard. Very just plain, nothing going on. So that was number one thing that was like, okay, that's weird. It gave us a name and said he was like some kid that was like locked in the basement, and he passed away down in the basement, and like he had to eat his own, stuff. Like, wasn't given food. It was just crazy. So like all this detail from this thing, from this Ouija board. And the Ouija board ended up, like, we told the kid, like, anytime anything negative is coming through, let us know so that we can say goodbye. So, like, occasionally the kid would move us up. We'd say, like, go to the moon or the sun, one of the two. So I'm just going to say the moon. He kept taking us to the moon every so often. And so we'd, like, say goodbye, take our hands off. So that was already, like, weird that we kept having something negative come through. And finally, I'm getting, like, the goosebumps telling this story, you guys. Okay, so, anyway, so one night, we were at my friend's house, and I don't know if we played with the Ouija board that day or not, but we were standing by the front door about to go out and do our crazy kid stuff, and right before we leave, all of a sudden this pin, like, the point forward, came thrown right at my head and just barely missed me, like barely grazed me. And we looked up and there was nothing on the stairs. It was so spooky. And a little bit about my friend's house. So it was already a spooky house as is, because in my hometown, we have a lot of like Victorian houses, old Victorian houses. And he lived in one of the Victorian houses. So like right when you walk into your left, there's a living room, and in the living room, there were like porcelain dolls everywhere. Super spooky. And I don't know why his mom decorated like that, but she did. And like we'd have things happen to us at sleepovers. So that's why we ended up doing the Ouija board, because we kept seeing things, shadows. We all kept feeling like we were being watched and whatever, some crazy stuff, because we always stayed in the basement, right? Why would we do that? Because it was like a finished basement, so it wasn't awful. Anyways, so after a while, we started getting some really, really, really like threatening things on that Ouija board. Like one of them was my friend saying that some bad things are going to happen. And within a few years of that, her brother passed away, her mom passed away, and I don't know if her dad was alive when we first were doing it. I don't think he was, but he died before that, unfortunately, so my friend's gone through a lot. And I don't know if it's related to the Ouija board or not, but we ended up burning the Ouija board and burying it, because I don't know if that was what you're supposed to do, but back then that's what my friend said we were doing, so we did it. Yeah, you guys, it was insane. Like the things that we like were seeing, and like it was giving us like details on things, and we're like, what the heck, you know, like was somebody moving their hand on it, like what's going on? So yeah, that is my ghost story. Make sure you guys eat something, make sure you drink something, and y'all have a great rest of your day. Spooky.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So this is right up my alley, because I love me a good ghost story, and I have been having the time of my life watching these videos, but I figured I would share my experience. So this actually happened when I was 2 years old, y'all. Yeah, 2. So that tells you just how scared I was and the effect that this had on me. My sister was there, and my sister is 8 years older than me, so she remembers, you know, this experience. And I remember we were talking one day, and I was describing the living room setup to her, and she basically confirmed that, you know, I was correct. So I remember this pretty vividly. Like this was one of my earliest childhood memories. But I guess I'll start by describing the living room setup. So I'm standing in the hallway, and I guess you could say behind me, the way I'm sitting now, would be the hallway. So my back is facing the hall. Now to the front and left side of me is my sister, sitting in the love seat, and her back is kind of toward me because she was sitting like kind of sideways, and she was doing something in her notebook. And then across from me is my dad, and he's sitting in the long couch. And then to the right of me is the wall where, you know, the TV is basically. So I'm in the entrance of the hallway looking out into the living room. So there's nothing behind me but the hallway, and then, you know, the bedrooms and all of that. And my brother's bedroom was on the right side. My sister's bedroom was on the left side. But everything behind me is dark. Nobody had any lights or anything on behind me. So keep in mind, at the time, y'all, we were watching Poltergeist. Now, I don't know why my family would have us watching stuff like that when we were really young, but that's what was on the TV at the time. And mind you, this was like 94. I was born in 92. So anyway, I am, I guess, playing around or whatever, and I stand there in the entrance, and you know how you're sitting somewhere and you can feel somebody walk up on you, like they're sneaking up on you real quietly or something. Well, it felt like that. Of course, I couldn't see it because it was behind me, but I could feel it. And I felt the presence of something walk up on me. And I remember it being cold, and I was afraid to move. So I was like frozen in fear. And y'all, whatever this thing was, decided to reach out and grab my right shoulder. And at that point, I guess my fight or flight kicked in, because I darted across the living room and jumped right into my dad's lap. And I remember saying, "Dad," and we called him Dad, not Dad. I was like, "Dad, that was a ghost, wasn't it?" And he was like, "Yeah." Now, I asked my sister, like, how in the world did I even know at 2 that it was a ghost? And she's like, "Well, we were watching Poltergeist." So I guess that's how I do. But my dad was very gifted and, could see spirits and things like that. So he wasn't afraid, but he did see it because he was sitting in the chair facing toward the hallway. So when it came up behind me, he saw it. And I guess he said, like, "What in the name of God do you want?" And it decided to go back into my brother's room. The interesting thing though, y'all, is that my dad said that it looked like my grandfather, my mom's dad. But he hadn't passed away yet. And he didn't pass, I don't think, until maybe I was 3. So he wasn't there long after, but he hadn't passed away at that time. So it's like he couldn't have been visiting in spirit form. He was still here. But I thought that was interesting. Now, the real shocker is my mom said that she was in my brother's room in the closet cleaning up or something one day, and far back into the closet she found a old suicide letter. So yeah, I don't know who that was or why it would decide to grab a little 2-year-old's shoulder. Like, I don't know. But it scared the crap out of me. And yeah, that was like my first experience with a ghost.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I grew up in a town called Fort Erie. It's a small town in Ontario, Canada. It borders Buffalo, New York. And Fort Erie has a lot of historical significance. So Fort Erie is a small town where nothing much happens now. But historically, it's a perfect recipe for some paranormal stuff to go down. So the Battle of 1812 was fought in Fort Erie. The Underground Railroad was something that is directly underneath of the town. So in the 1840s, 1850s, abolitionists developed a system of underground railroads to help slaves achieve freedom and help to escape. Some escaped, some didn't make it out of the tunnels. So that tied in with the War of 1812. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of stuff going on in Fort Erie. So I moved 11 times while living in Fort Erie in the span of 13 years. And in almost every single house I lived in, no matter where in the town it was, crazy shit happened. Like, in every single house. And I moved out of Fort Erie 8 years ago to Toronto, and it's like once I moved, things stopped happening. And it's not like when I was like, oh, it's when I was a kid. I'm like, this is like stuff was happening when I was 17 years old, like right before I moved. So like it's the town. The town's cursed.
So the story I'm going to start with is one that I was like 11. So it's not like I was so young that I couldn't remember it. And we lived in this house that was built like on the grave sites of like soldiers and indigenous people. And there's a house like right down the street from me. And in like the 2010s area, the house was doing like renovations, and it was like big news that they were literally pulling bodies out of the ground, like underneath all of these like big, beautiful houses and like stuff that's on like the Niagara Boulevard. Like in today, they're still pulling like corpses out of the ground that like houses have just been built on top of because there's just so much death. So we move into this house, and like off the bat, bad vibes, like super bad vibes, really creepy, just like unsettling feelings. So I'm living there with my mom and her partner and my twin sister. So it's also nice to have a twin sister validate your feelings. So throughout living in this house, I would always beg my sister to let me sleep in her bedroom because I was always afraid. I didn't know, like, not anything particularly, but I was afraid. So there was one night that I was sleeping in her room with her, but we were, we're giggling, we're doing sleepover stuff. And outside of her bedroom window, which just faces our neighbor's house, who was like a little old lady who lived by herself, we started hearing like whispers. It started as whispers, and it sounded like there was multiple voices. Like it sounded like there was like a room full of people just like and we both like dead quiet, like dead silent, like looking at each other and just like staring at each other. And the whispers started to grow. And soon it sounded like there was a room full of people having a party, just like chatting. Like, it's like words, you can't really hear words. It just becomes like a big kind of like hum of like sounds and voices. It built, and then all of a sudden, nothing. It stopped. And we were like, what the fuck was that? So obviously the next day we tell like our mom, we're like, we heard, and she was like, oh, that's probably just Betty having people over. Mom, why is Betty, our 85-year-old neighbor, having people over at night, a huge party? So she talks to Betty. No people were over. No people were over. So that's like weird, but we're like, maybe Betty did have a party. Couple weeks later, my sister's bedroom, the same bedroom. We'd had puppies, so we let the dog out, and my mom was like, go close your sister's bedroom door so he doesn't get in there and tear stuff up. So I walk over, I close her bedroom door. She's not in her room. She's sitting on the couch, and I pull the bedroom door closed, and I just kind of zoned out. I don't know. I zoned out, and I was just kind of like disassociating, my hand on her doorknob, still, and the doorknob starts like moving, like somebody, like my hand is on and it starts shaking and moving like there's somebody inside trying to open the door, and I jump back and I release it, and I'm like, somebody's trying to oh, you're imagining it. I was not imagining it. That door was moving. Like that door handle, someone was trying to get out of that room, the same room that we heard the voices in. So this is a different place. My family owns these apartments, really old apartments built in like 1910 or something, 1902, 19 something. And this one's kind of an interesting twist because it isn't just like we lived in this haunted house and we moved. Everyone in my family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers, we've all lived in these apartments at different times throughout our lives, like without each other. Like, we all have our own stories. My brother's wife, when she lived there, she would always complain about the hot water turning on. Like she'd be in the tub, and it's this big claw tub, like old, and she would talk about how the hot water would just turn on when she was in the tub. And I know the story, and I've heard the story. I lived there with my mom when I was a kid. I see my mom a couple weeks ago, and I'm talking to her about the apartment. Like, that place was freaky. She said, yeah, the hot water would always just turn on whenever I was having a bath. Like, they would just, and I'm like, these two stories, like, these two ladies I've never met, and they have the exact same story. There was a time, I was 17 when this happened, and I was in my bedroom, and my dad and my sister weren't home, so I was home alone, and I was always freaked out. So I was literally hiding in my back bedroom because I was like, I don't feel, like, comfortable in this apartment. It was just bad vibes. And I'm like doing my thing in my room, and I hear just like a huge crash, like just like a super loud, like alarming sound. And I was terrified. I was like, I'm not coming out of my room. I'm not going to investigate. Like, that's how people die. That's the horror movies. So I'm sitting in my room for like, it took me like an hour before I built up the courage to like go into the living room kitchen where I heard it and like investigate.
And when I turned the corner and looked in the kitchen, the drawer that had the spoons and the knives and everything, it was pulled out of, and these are old raggedy ass like drawers. Like you gotta wiggle those things to get them out, to get them open. This drawer was ripped out and flung across the room. Like someone, and the silverware was everywhere. Like some spirit had enough force to rip open this drawer and throw this drawer full of silverware across the room. I left it there. I didn't touch it. I was like, I'm not touching this until somebody comes home. My brother has come home to all the knives being off. He was a chef, so he had like a knife wall, all of his knives on the ground. We have like video evidence of like apparitions and stuff. Like my aunt, when she lived there with her partner, like he was like lucid dreaming, and he would dream about these spirits like talking to him and him going into different, like, y'all, this town is haunted. This is a really long-winded TikTok. No one's gonna ever watch this, but there's another house I lived in on North Street, and when I was living there, everything bad happened to like the men in my life. I was a kid at this point, so I don't know. These are like stories I'm taking from my mom. So in the like 2 years we lived there, my dad broke his leg mysteriously. He was just walking in the backyard, and all of a sudden on the ground, leg broke. Even he says he doesn't know what happened. My uncle died of an aneurysm. My sister's boyfriend, who lived in the house at the time, got in a really bad accident, and my nephew was born with his intestines outside. So just like bad vibes. And weird things happening. So my mom contacts a medium, and she comes in to the house, and she says, there is a spirit here who like doesn't like men, doesn't fuck with men. And my mom's like, that checks out, because all this crazy shit's been happening. And just the cherry on top, I remember my twin sister and I, again, there's two of us. I remember we would play in the backyard of this house at a fence. And there was a little boy who lived on the other side of the fence, our little neighbor boy. And it was this little blonde boy. And I remember playing with him. And for my whole life, I remember playing with him. And when I was like maybe 15, I brought it up. I was like, oh, the little boy who lived next door, like Donna's kid. And my mom was like, no, Donna never had a son. And I'm like, yes, he did. Like, yes, she did. I remember playing with this kid. And she's like, no, like she never did. And she's like, but you and your sister would always sit at the fence, and you guys would talk about this little boy. And my twin sister, she remembers the little boy too, same way I do. And the medium came in, and she said, there's a little boy that your daughters play with in the back. And my mom said, I know. Anyway, those are all my stories. That's my long-winded TikTok.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So my dad died when I was 10 years old. He died of cancer. And my brother was 7, I was 10, and my mom was like in her late 30s, I think. So that was in 2010, and my dad continued to haunt us till we moved out in like 2013, 2014. So pretty much my dad was a really funny guy. He was very quiet and monotone, and like would be like, look at the bird, and like just super monotone but really funny. Like would crack jokes at everything and make up little like joke songs, and like that like stuck with my family for years. So my dad continued to haunt us for the next few years that we lived in that house, and there are so many stories, but I think the creepiest one, that it had to have been my dad, because it doesn't make sense if it was anyone else. So when I was 10, I had gotten a phone because my mom was taking my dad to the hospital all the time to get cancer treatment, and they needed some way to get in touch with me, so they bought me a slide phone. It was like electric blue color, and it was so cool. I think it was called like, I don't remember. I actually don't remember, but it was really cool, and it had flowers on the back. And it had preset ringtones on it, like all the old phones did. My dad had a completely different brand of phone and different style, everything. So his preset ringtones were completely different than mine. There's no way I could have gotten his on mine or mine on his. You see where this is going. So one night we ordered Chinese food. This night was the scariest night of my family's life, because it was just my mom, my brother, and me. And a bunch of things happened this night, which I can go into more, but the creepiest thing that happened, just to save you time, because there's so many of these videos to watch. So we were eating the Chinese food, and my phone's on the table, and
I think at this point we moved to the living room, we were done. And my phone just goes off with my dad's ringtone. And I remember when he was alive, I would change it all the time on his phone to like something funny, so that when he was like at school, or like he was a teacher, when he was at school or if he was in public, it would ring and it would be like a really stupid sounding ringtone. And it was some stupid ringtone, but it rang on my phone. And we just don't even know how that was possible. Never happened again after that. We all were like, that's weird. But yeah, that was the weirdest thing that happened that night. Not the scariest, but probably the weirdest. Scary, in terms of scary, I mean, that night so many things happened. But we had, throughout the years, multiple things happen that were definitely my dad. So, yeah, that's my story. If you want to hear more, just let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Picture it. Newark, 1997. I am 6 years old. My aunt has cancer and is undergoing treatment at Sloan Kettering. We are staying in America's perineum because even in the 90s, New York was too expensive to get a fucking hotel. By we, I mean my mom's entire family has come from all 4 cardinal directions to be here and support my aunt through this first of her procedures. If it hasn't been made clear by this point, we are not a wealthy family, so I was sharing a hotel room in the world's shittiest Motel 6 in Newark, New Jersey, with my mom and another one of my aunties. From the moment we get to the motel, things are wonky. You can only expect so much good service from a Motel 6 in Newark, New Jersey. However, we had some exploding toilet situations. We had some flooding unrelating to the exploding toilet. We had to change rooms twice, ultimately ended up staying in the 3rd room. I was afraid of the dark as a child, still am, don't tell anybody. So we have 2 precautions to make sure that I can sleep through the night. One is that I sleep next to the bathroom. We forgot to bring a nightlight with us, so we leave the bathroom door ajar with the bathroom light on. That way I have a sort of nightlight situation. And the second provision is that I get to bring my snuggle buddy, who just happens to be a plush of Flounder from The Little Mermaid. You know Flounder, right? He's little, yellow and blue, he's cute. Darkness falls across the land. My aunt falls asleep in the bed that's closest to the room door. My mom and I fall asleep in the bed that's closest to the bathroom, and all is well. Or at least was, until I woke up in the middle of the night and found that my Flounder doll was missing. So I got down on the floor and found him underneath the bed. The first weird thing is that he wasn't on the side of the bed, which would have been normal if he just fell out of my arms while I was sleeping. He was all the way underneath the bed. Like, I had to crawl underneath the motel bed to get him. He's probably 3-4 feet under there. When I retrieve him and I pull him up to look at him, I notice that one of his eyes is missing. I thought it just fell out when he fell on the floor, so I start feeling around on the floor for it. Can't find it anywhere. Now remember, I'm 6 years old. This is very serious. So of course I have to wake up my mother. I shake my mom. Mom, Flounder's eye is missing. My mom sleepily rolls over. Huh? She picks up Flounder. As soon as she touches him, his eye is right back where it was, or wasn't. My mom hands him back to me and promptly goes back to sleep. The second she rolls over, his eye disappears again. This time, I touched the space where his eye was. It was one of those, like, plastic inset eyes. I'll have to see if I can find a picture of what I'm talking about later. But there's just, I'm feeling soft, fuzzy felt where his eye used to be. I'm feeling it, and it's not plastic. His eye is gone. So I shake my mom again. Mom, his eye is missing. She rolls over, takes him, eyes back in his head. At this point, my mom just takes the doll from me so she can get some damn sleep. Her sister is in active cancer treatment, and she has bigger things to worry about than her daughter having weird nighttime hallucinations. But I could not get back to sleep. And I especially could not get back to sleep when, a few minutes after my mom started snoring again, I looked at the end of the bed and saw some kind of shadow figure. It looked like it was made out of after image, like when you get a photo taken with flash and you see all those colored spots in front of your eyes, but the spots were forming the clear silhouette of a man wearing a bowler hat or some other type of old-fashioned hat and holding a cane or walking stick. Flounder kind of fell out of favor as my nighttime cuddle buddy after that, but my mom wouldn't get rid of him because, as I've now said several times, money was tight in our family and that plush was expensive, so he had to stay around. In fact, he stayed around for 4 more years until the night that I found him on my pillow after having locked him in the closet. And yeah, his eye was missing. I raised so much hell that my mom finally agreed to get rid of him, but I just found out recently that she donated it to a children's shelter. So.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, so I have tried to record this like numerous times. It's just not recording, it stops recording, it won't pick up the audio, so I don't know what's going on. So a fast version now. I waited until we came back to this house to tell this story because it's just gonna make so much sense. So when my little family and I, there's usually me, my partner, and our baby. We don't sleep in our room. She don't sleep in her room. Like, it's just so scary. So when we sleep here, we sleep in my mom's room. My daughter sleeps there. My partner sleeps in the middle. I sleep at the edge of the bed. When I sleep at the edge of the bed, I used to sleep with this window open, but I just don't anymore. But when I sleep at the edge of the bed, I could just like easily roll off. The bed does make a lot of noise. So from the window perspective is like that. You really can't see on side of the house, but everything else is an open view. So on this particular night, I was waking up every single hour, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., until finally 4 a.m. I just heard little crunching sounds outside because our house is surrounded by river rocks. But just to give you some perspective of where I live is here. So it's literally in the middle of nowhere. Literally nowhere. I do have family who live down here, but they just kind of mind their own business. So okay, before I start walking, this is actually important. So when I walk, you can hear the rocks crunch. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's all around our house. This is literally where we live. Nowhere. No one out there for miles and miles. I do have another family member who lives way over there, but they're just so far away. We hardly visit them or see them at all now. So, like I said, I was waking up every single hour. This is my mom's window, and outside of here is the side of the house. It's just kind of all my dad's tools. And this tree is important for later because it still extends out that way. So we have a little good boy. He's tired, looks unhealthy, unhappy. I'm sorry. But like I said, I was just waking up like throughout the night, and finally around 4 a.m. I just woke up and just stared at the window for God knows why. But I was just like laying there quiet and just listening because the dog was barking. He was running back and forth like from here to here on the other side, just running back and forth around the house, just going crazy. So he does know everyone around here. He is familiar with everyone. He knows who is who. And unless it's someone he doesn't know, he just barks and barks and barks and barks until we're there like, hey, stop. And during this time, I did have an uncle who was jumping couch to couch, which is kind of important because he did used to come around to feed our dog, which is how our dog got to know who he is. But I don't even know how to start this story besides you know, I was just up, I was just laying in bed listening out, very quiet. Like my daughter, husband were sleeping, and I was just quiet for like a good 15-30 minutes. I don't even know how long, until finally I started to hear those footsteps, like So no matter where you walk around our house, the rocks are gonna crunch. Like no matter what, if you're walking fast, if you're walking slow, they are gonna crunch. And I woke up my husband like, hey, someone's outside. Not that loud, obviously. I'm just over exaggerating because, like, I don't even know what to think during the time. And he was like, what do you mean, who's outside? Like, is it your uncle? And I'm like, no, like, if it was him, he would have, like, already came up to the window and been like, hey, can you let me inside? Like, it's cold. But it wasn't him. That wasn't happening.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, it's my time to shine. Let's do this thing. So when I was younger, you know how as kids y'all play that game, like that's my house, that's my car, and with you and your cousins in the back seat type thing, right? Well, we used to do this all the time. And there was this one particular house on the way home that I loved, I adored, to the point to where I used to have dreams about the layout of this home before I moved in it. I technically kind of manifested being in this home, right? Or did the home choose me? I don't know. Anyway, fast forward 7th grade, and my mom and dad say they want to move. You know, my mom started writing down how she wanted houses to look, and, you know, doing all this plotting and planning type thing. And we so happy ended up viewing this home. But, you know, it was without realtors. It was just the key getting the home type thing. However, the first time we stepped in there and were just doing a look around, not moving in, we hear 3 ladies talking. Now, I say 3 ladies because all of us agreed that we heard 3 ladies, different voices at one time. But they were muffled. They sound like, that's how it sounds. Like if they was around the whole house, because me and my parents were in one room and my sister was in another one, in another room. Same time, we all taking off running out the house. At the beginning, when we first had this house, there was like this ramp out there, so all you heard was that door, boom, us running down the ramp, and we at the end of the ramp, like, what was that? You know, my dad, being my dad, decided to say, oh, it was somebody riding past the house. Now, I will say, there are times when people ride past the house and you can hear music being really loud, or if they're arguing, you can hear it for that split second. So I gave it to my dad. You know, I'm like, sometimes that does happen. You know, I'm believing in my dad, right? But I know, we all know we heard it. Now, once we moved in, my mom and then finally told us, and we like, I'm in high school, she telling us later, that they did have the conversation because my dad lied to us, had a conversation about whether they should invest in a home because they plan on being somewhere they was going to actually raise us, and would it be smart to invest in that space on that home if we was going to be terrified to live there because of the ghost. But they decided to buy it anyway because it was a good deal. Sounds like another place I remember, something like Amityville Horror. Like, they still tried it. Now, we move in, and I got a couple situations, a couple things that happen, and my family can vouch for this. If y'all would like, I can get them on here, and they can each tell their own little stories, okay? But I'm going to just give you a little rundown of what happened growing up. So we had one situation where me and my dad was sitting in the living room. It was really late at night because my dad was an all-nighter type person, like, and we all are. We like night owls. And me and him were up the latest, and we were watching TV. Well, at some point, something went across the screen, like a shadow of a man went across the screen to the point where you can see the shadow reflecting on the shiny parts of the screen. So I didn't say nothing because my dad, I know my dad. He's the type that act like he didn't see it or whatever. I didn't say nothing. I just like, oh, wow. You know, I was still young, but I was like, ooh. And my dad hit the pause and was like, Shalise, did you see that shit? To this day, he denies that he ever seen it, y'all. Another situation. My grandma was in town from Philly, and they're more spiritual on that side, like the type they believe that every generation has that person that it's spiritual and things talk to you, stuff like that. To the point to where at one of our, we was at a graveyard. At one of our graveyard situations, family was there, and there's one particular color. It's the reason why I'm not supposed to tell that story. Okay, so we're just gonna come back to my story. Anyway, my grandma was in town, and she walked into my sister's room where her items normally are stored. That's where she put all her things when she visit, and the light turns on before she can get in there. And she just, thank you so much, you know. And we looking like, thank you. I'm like, are you crazy? Another situation. Me and my siblings and a couple cousins jumping across the beds. We put the 2 mattresses in the room, and we boom, 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 boom. And it was a blow-up mattress on the floor, so we bouncing all over the place. One of those nights. And in their bathroom, the bathroom cabinet, it's a drawer that's really hard to move. Like, to this day, it's super hard to move. Like, I couldn't get in it a couple days ago at all. I had to get one of the crowbars and pull it open. That's how hard it is, right? So this drawer it's full of shit, full of bait, just chalk and shit like that. Well, that night, we heard that drawer, and all the chalk came rolling down in the damn drawer, y'all. When I say the cat took off before us, and we just jumping on trying to scatter, just like falling, blankets is all over our feet, we tripping, trampling each other out of there, like it was ridiculous. Another situation. There was a time in this house where my mom would hear like footsteps. Well, everybody heard it at some point, but my mom heard it the most. It would sound like feet would hit the ground, because my sisters and them, my sister room, the youngest one, used to always get out the bed and come in there, and my mom in the room. So it would always sound like it was 2 feet, and they'll walk through the hallway and they'll just stop. So this one particular time, my mom said nobody was there. My dad wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. That's what it was. My dad wasn't there, and she heard it. So she assumed me and my sister was getting in the bed, right? So she hear the do-do-do-do-do. She hear come all the way to the bed. She feel the indentation in the bed behind her. And she goes, like a mother would, goes to make sure the blanket gets on the kid. My sister wasn't there. My sister wasn't there. There's another time where, the doorknobs on the doors used to move in my room. Only my room, nowhere else. Just in my room. And to this day, I do not have doorknobs in that room. I actually live in a house by myself. My family and everybody moved out. I live there now. I'm raising my child there now. But the doorknobs in that room are gone. I still do not put the doorknobs on there. I would rather look through the scary black hole through that door than see them doorknobs jingle the way they were. Another situation that happened was my Uncle Freddie, which is my grandmother's brother. Long time ago, he got beat really bad by some white people, and he kind of was a little slow a little bit. But we had him on the back porch getting some vitamin D. He chilling, and he's laughing like laughing at something. And he's pointing at the light post in the backyard. And we asked him, "What you laughing at, Freddie? What you laughing at?" He's like, "That man up there with the he said he had on a plaid shirt, right?" He's like, "That man up there with the plaid shirt, he gonna get hurt." That's what he can say. He gonna get hurt. He laughing like that, yeah, dummy. Well, fast forward like a couple months later, my mom come home and she's like, "Where your daddy at?" First thing she do is looking for my daddy when she come in the house. "Where your daddy at?" And I'm like, "He right there." I'm in the living room. I'm looking past her into her dark room, which is by and I'm looking at the bathroom. I'm like, "He right there behind you." And she stopped me. She's like, "What you mean he behind me?" I said, "He right there behind you." Like, dead serious. What I saw, y'all, was a man with a plaid shirt. It was like a electric blue and some vibrant red and a tan. plaid shirt, but I couldn't see his head. But I seen a man figure back then. Now he right there, you know. And she's like, she start walking out the room stiff, like, I was just in there. Your daddy ain't in there. Daddy wasn't even home. Crazy, right? Oh, y'all, I got more. It's going to be a part 2. I got more.